Welcome to the Coalition of Black-led Community-Based Organizations Candidate Forum Week. We are delighted you choose to be with us tonight. We want you to have a safe and wonderful experience. Please be assured that your safety as well as your enjoyment of the event are our utmost concern. We are a coalition of like-minded organizations. Our goal is to ensure members of our communities are informed that they can make the best decision when electing representatives to office. We will maintain a balanced opportunity for all candidates to express their views. We are nonpartisan and do not support any political party or candidate. Also, during this COVID-19 pandemic, please remember to wear your mask, wash your hands, and always stand 6 feet apart from others. Please enjoy the event and continue to be safe.
Good evening, and welcome to the fourth night of the second annual Coalition of Staten Island Black-led Community-Based Organizations Candidates Forum Week. The Staten Island Coalition of Black-led Organizations was formed in 2021 to coalesce resources to better focus on how issues of importance to Staten Island's broad and growing communities of color are being addressed by its elected officials. My name is Debbie Rose, and I serve as a member of the Legislative Committee of the Staten Island National Council of Negro Women, Inc. Our coalition pledges to maintain each forum as a balanced opportunity for all candidates to express their views. We are nonpartisan, and we do not support any political party or candidate. To assure that our members are informed voters, we will spend each night this week meeting candidates who accept our forum invitation. It is important for you to know that we sent personal invitations to each candidate running for federal, state, and Staten Island-wide offices. Those that appear on the forums accepted our invitation. Those candidates that do not appear on any of the forums did not respond to our invitation. Tonight, we will hear from candidates running for the office of New York State Senate and New York State Assembly. But before I turn things over to the moderator, I want to take a moment to thank each of the coalition members for their continued partnership and support of this important and historic voter engagement effort. All of the partner organizations will be listed in the credits at the conclusion of tonight's session. Remember, early voting starts Saturday, October 29th, and your vote matters. So sit back, relax, enjoy, and remember, if you don't vote, you don't count. I will now turn the mic over to our president and our moderator for this evening, Nicole Myers, to begin the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, former Councilwoman Debbie Rose. We so appreciate you at the National Council of Negro Women here on Staten Island. Welcome, everyone, to this evening's forum. My name is Nicole Myers, and I'm the president of the National Council of Negro Women here on Staten Island. I will be a moderator for the New York State Senate and New York Assembly Candidates Forums. Let's go over the rules. The first one is that each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. They'll have 90 seconds to answer questions that were already selected by coalition members, and 1 minute to provide closing remarks. If you have questions and we have time at the end of the forum to present your questions, please include them in the question and answer box. And one of the team members from the National Council of Negro Women, Ms. Moy Barnes, will read those questions off for us. We look forward to providing a comprehensive forum featuring the candidates vying to be your next assemblyman and senator. I hope tonight is a valuable experience and that all members of the Staten Island community remember to participate in the elections. Early voting starts on Saturday the 29th through November 6th, and the general election is on November 8th. You're going to continue to hear that because it's important that we exercise our right to vote. To ensure fairness, we're going to ask the candidates to speak in the order that they arrived. And our first candidate for tonight is New York State Senate candidate, Ms. Jessica Scarcella-Spanton.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Scarcella-Spanton. I'm running for the New York State Senate. A little bit about me, and I know many of you on here, so I want to thank the former councilwoman. I want to thank Nicole and everyone who organized this forum tonight. I apologize, I'm in my car. I was actually just talking in Brooklyn, part of one of the big important things that we have to do during this election cycle. A little about myself. Most recently, I actually left a position at the MTA as Government and Community Relations Director of Operations there to cover, I was covering the Upper West Side. Before that, I worked for State Senator Diane Savino as her Director of Operations, managing her Staten Island and Brooklyn office. And I have almost 13 years of experience. I started my career in the New York State Assembly as a legislative director. I've worked on lots of campaigns. I was the executive director of the Democratic Party for a few years. And, you know, I never actually saw myself running for office. I've very much been behind the scenes, which is the place I find myself most comfortable, just getting things done, making sure that we're doing the real work. But when I got to the MTA, I honestly missed the work that I was doing in the Senate. And I think, as a lot of people on here probably can relate, as many young women often do, they second guess themselves. So I was thinking maybe I'll work for whoever comes next. I had plans written out for whoever the candidate was that was going to be running. And I finally decided, you know, I saw the maps come out. I was sitting at my desk at the MTA, and I thought maybe this was the right opportunity to do this on my own. So I made that decision, and I haven't regretted it for a second since. I have big plans for the office. You know, some of the issues that I'm really passionate about are universal childcare and after school for all, maternal health. I think this is an issue that often gets overlooked. During COVID, if you remember, moms were left to be in the delivery room by themselves due to COVID protocols in the hospital. And I helped to push forward an executive order that reversed that, because I know how important it is to have an advocate with you while you're giving birth. Quick story about me. When I was pregnant with my daughter, Emily, my husband, Josh, was preparing to go to Afghanistan. It was his second tour. He was in the United States Army. And I remember the anxiety I felt, thinking he was going to leave, thinking I was going to be by myself. We were in Colorado Springs at the time. So I know that that's not good for a mom to be alone. I know it's not good for the baby to be alone. But most importantly, he ended up being there. And after I gave birth, my arm swelled up. And it turned out I was hemorrhaging. It was my husband who turned to the doctor and said, "What's wrong?" So having that extra set of eyes is absolutely crucial. I think there's so much more we could be doing surrounding maternal health in this state. So it's an issue that I don't always talk about on the campaign trail, because it's not one of those issues that everybody gets jazzed up about, but it's something I'm really, really passionate about. And I want to dive in deeply on that. So I know there's so many issues that affect our community on Staten Island and in Southern Brooklyn. And I'm very open. I knock on doors, and I always ask people what their ideas are for what the state Senate should be doing, what we could be doing better. And I promise I'm always going to be on the ground advocating, making sure that we're making people aware of the resources that are available to them as well. So with that, I would be happy to take any questions, and thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jessica, for that really comprehensive overview.
Right to the 2-minute mark.
So our first question is, what legislation will you support to help homeowners and renters on Staten Island?
Absolutely. So I think, you know, again, being from a military family, the only reason that I was able to purchase my home was because of the VA loan. And the only reason why it's affordable to us is my husband is a disabled combat veterans, so we get property tax incentives. I think there's a lot more we could be doing to encourage homeownership. I remember when we started looking into it, there are some programs for first-time home buyers, but the income eligibility level is pretty low. I would really like to see at the state level that income eligibility raised so that we're keeping people in New York State and making sure that they have the resources needed to buy a home. I look at other states' policies. I believe it's in Virginia that they have a first-time home buyers program, which you can build in the down payment and the closing costs into your mortgage. So you don't have that overwhelming burden of putting down, especially on Staten Island, over $100,000 on a house. I think having home ownership is an important piece in passing something along to your family and building wealth, building something that you can really put your money into. So that's my plan for home ownership. And also creating property tax incentives for city workers, for our first responders. There's so many things that we could be doing at that level as well. Another thing that I want to look into is right now we have the senior citizens homeowners exemption and also the senior citizens rent freeze exemption. Again, those income eligibility rates are very, very low, and the cost of living is getting very, very high. So I want to look at programs that expand who can tap into these services so that people can age in place. And as far as rent goes, I know how expensive it could be. I was a renter my entire life. My family actually didn't buy their first home until I was well out of the house. So we always rented. I bought my first home in 2021. So I do understand the burdens of that. And I think that we could be doing a lot to, again, incentivize people to rent at a fair cost so that they are able to do so without having, and we often see this happen, people have 5 or 6 roommates because it's the only way sometimes to rent an apartment in New York City.
Thank you for that answer. The next question is, assuming your victory, choose a single issue you would prioritize in the coming term. Name it and describe what you want to accomplish.
One of the biggest issues that I think would really help families throughout the inflation that's going on, throughout the high cost of living, is universal childcare and after-school programs as well. If you just think a few short years ago, we didn't have universal 3 and 4K in New York City. I would like to roll that back even further and build universal childcare into an early education program so that parents aren't taking more than half their salary sometimes to put into childcare costs. I think I can speak for myself. When we first moved back from Colorado, when my husband got out of the military, I got offered a job making, and government employees, the big dirty secret, we don't make a lot of money at all. So the job was making, I think it was $45,000. And my daughter at the time was about 1 year old. And I went to different daycares to get the cost layout, and it didn't make sense for me personally to go back to work. And because of the cost of childcare, more than half my salary would have been going into that. So I want to make it easier for families to have the care that they need, the care that they deserve. So this is something that I'm really going to be beating the drum on. As a mom, I fully understand the burden that childcare can sometimes have on working parents, making the decision to go back to work. So this is something that I think would be a huge relief for countless families across the state.
Thank you for that answer. The third question is, are you prepared to advocate for realistic reforms to the correctional system? What specific reforms would you be willing to support and how?
Absolutely. So, I think there's countless issues within our corrections system. So I've spoken with some of the advocates, I've spoken with the union as well. And I know that these are dire conditions that people are facing in there, especially during COVID. You saw inmates who were dying, inmates who were, getting sick. and they weren't getting the proper care that they deserve. I think that also our corrections officers sometimes, especially our female corrections officers, they face countless sexual harassment claims. There's so many different issues that we have to get in there. And what I want to do is, one thing that I think is really important is to speak to every side of the issue and make sure that we're legislating in a way that makes sense for everybody. And that's what I intend on doing. And I would love to research some of the bills and talk to some of my colleagues who have introduced legislation to make these conditions better. And I think it's important to see things firsthand. So I would love to go visit the different facilities across the state to see how things are with my own eyes. I think that's an important piece of creating effective legislation.
Thank you, Jessica, for your answer to our final question. I am now going to ask our National Council of Negro Women member, Ms. Moy Barnes, if there are any questions in the question and answer box. Amoy?
Thank you, Madam President Nicole Myers. Yes, there is one question from the audience. The question is, how important is the next New York State Court of Appeals Chief Judge appointment?
Listen, anytime we're electing judges, whether they're appointed, elected, it's of the utmost importance to make sure that they are qualified to do the job and they're going to do it with the tact needed to be successful at it. I know there was a lot of issues with the last Court of Appeals judge, so I want to make sure that we're vetting them properly, asking the proper questions as they go through the approval process in the Senate. And that's what I intend on doing. And I'm going to work with the community to cultivate questions that are important to us in making sure that this person, whether it be a man or woman, whoever it may be that comes next, that we're really vetting them to the full extent that we can.
Thank you very much. There are no more questions.
Thank you very much, Amoy. And thank you for participating in our candidates forum. We will now offer you an opportunity, 1 minute, to provide closing remarks and remind each of our members of the coalition why we should vote for you.
Again, I just wanted to thank everybody for your questions tonight. I put my cell phone number in the chat. So if anybody has further questions or they want to talk more, I'm always happy to communicate. As a reminder, and I know you're going to hear it a million times, early voting begins October 29th to November 6th, and election day is November 8th. It's extremely important that we get everybody out to vote for myself and for Vin Argenziano, who's running for the state assembly, for Max Rose, who's running for Congress. I know this is nonpartisan, so I will just say vote in general as I'm talking. I realize that, but I wanted to thank you all for your time, and I look forward to continuing the conversation. And you can always reach me. I'll always be accessible to everybody. Thank you.
Our next candidate is vying for the office of the New York State Assembly. His name is Vincent Argenziano. Vincent, welcome to tonight's forum, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Our pleasure. I am now going to give you an opportunity to provide an opening statement, and you have 2 minutes to do so.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, my name is Vincent Argenziano. I'm running for the New York State Assembly in the 63rd Assembly District. It is the district that encompasses a large portion of the mid-island of Staten Island, and then, into a couple of pieces into the North Shore. I'm currently the Deputy Public Administrator here in Richmond County, and prior to that, I worked in the New York State Assembly for 6 years. I was Chief of Staff to Assemblyman Mike Cusick, job I genuinely loved having, and have stayed active in the community, in the political realm, even ever since leaving then. So this is a seat that is very important to me. It's a district I've spent a lot of time working in. It's on a political end, it is an area of the island where I have worked for many candidates vying for the seat. So when the opportunity arose this year, Assemblyman Cusick announced he was not going to run for re-election after 20 years, I felt that it at least took some consideration warranted some consideration that I should think about doing this. And, part of it was my own interest in getting back to legislative work, and part of it was, kind of fielding phone calls and getting the encouragement that I was glad to get to take my chance. I've taken this opportunity extremely serious. I, work day in and day out to try and basically keep a seat, hold on to a seat that I feel I've played a part in its role for almost a decade now. I love Staten Island. I believe in our potential, and I want to be that person to work towards where we want to go. I have a vision for the whole state. I believe in fairness and equality. I believe in economic opportunity for everybody, and the policies that could bring us to that to there. That involves a lot of work that I do with labor unions. I'm very strong on workers' rights, and I want to take that vision statewide. I think out here on Staten Island, we're in an area that is, most conservative in the whole city, but an area that's always been kind of a mixed area, and the balance of power on Staten Island is starting to lean in the opposite direction, and I want to be sure that I hold on to some semblance of diversity by holding on to this seat. So thank you guys for the opportunity for addressing you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for that answer. So you are running for Assemblyman for the 63rd District, correct?
Yes.
Why should voters elect you and not your opponent? And please limit this to policy and approach and not a biographical.
Gotcha.
Yes, citation.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so on a policy and approach standpoint, so I have always felt that the way to go about things in the state assembly, in my time there, the on-the-job learning that I've gotten from Assemblyman Ryan Cusick is that everything that you are going to do is going to be coalition building, and you have to be a representative for every person that elects you, whether they are voters of yours or they are not. And I think that those are two things where my opponent and I really differ. I understand the limits of power on the position. I don't think that I'm running to be, governor. I don't think I'm running to be president. So every single thing that I put forth gets community input, gets bounce back and forth. Jessica was just on here. We talk a lot of policy out together. Understanding the dynamics of how Albany works, that something has to be carried in the assembly, something has to be carried in the Senate, and you need buy-in from other people. You cannot take the most extreme thing and think that just because you're going to get elected, it's going to happen. There has to be an understanding of what the office is. And the other thing is, there has to be an understanding of the people that you are representing. I've struck a tone and a balance, I feel, on this campaign that I'm a Democrat. I don't run from being a Democrat, but I do participate in things like this that are nonpartisan. I do speak to many people on the other side. I listen to what they have to say. I respect the opinions of everybody, and I take into consideration different points of view. And I just don't think that that's something that is necessarily being seen from my opponent. The tone that he has taken for many years is one of, sort of extreme partisanship, and I just don't think that that's the way to govern. And it's not the tone I would take. It's not the tone I'm taking on the campaign trail, and it's not the tone I will take in office. I plan to be a representative for every person in the district.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. The next question is, if elected, how would you support women who will be affected by losing their right to choose in connection to Roe versus Wade?
Yeah. it's a terrible thing to see. You know, what I say to everyone is, you know, because people will approach me, well, you know, abortion isn't right, or however people will put it, and I say, essentially, taking out the personal feelings of things, should the government, you know, start taking away rights of people? Should the government be imposing their will on decisions that should be made between a person and their doctor? Absolutely not. I will take all steps needed. I know that on a state level, I mean, obviously we would love to see some sort of federal resolution to this that restores rights back to the women who have had them stripped of them. But on a state level, I think that there are potential votes that can be coming up to, you know, codify Roe v. Wade into the New York State Constitution. I would be a yes vote for that. It has to pass 2 consecutive times. I would be a yes vote if it comes up next year and I'm in the assembly my first 2 years. You would see a yes vote for me, and I would continue to fund and make sure that you know, abortion access is seen as a fundamental part of women's health.
Thank you for your answer.
Absolutely.
Our final question is, economic development is crucial for the stabilization needs of all. How would you improve or enhance opportunities for minority-owned businesses? And please be specific in your answer.
Sure. So I think that the opportunities for minority-owned businesses goes hand in hand with just general economic development, and then furthermore, specifying within any type of any type of planning or any type of development that certain amounts can be allocated for minority-owned businesses. I've spoken at length on, you know, a plan that EDC in New York has studied and put out a proposal for the West Shore of Staten Island, to bring in more infrastructure jobs, and then ultimately more businesses to come to the area. I think anything that we do with that should be in coordination with our city's MWBE. I think that there should always be incentives to at least reach certain number of MWBEs in any city project that we do. Yeah, any type of, if we're able to get something like that off the ground, get it from study into action, I would love to work with anyone in the community that I can for ways best to, you know, bring forth the type of numbers that we're looking to see for economic opportunities for minority businesses.
Thank you so much for your answer. So before I give you 1 minute to close,
Sure.
I am going to turn it over to our National Council of Negro Women team member here, Amoy Bonds, and see if there are any questions from the floor.
Currently, I do not see any questions from the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for checking. And hearing no questions from the floor, I'm gonna offer you an opportunity to 1 minute to close and tell us why we should select you as our next 63rd Assembly.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. You know, in closing, I really just want to discuss, you know, what I think of this role and what I think should be seen in an elected official. And that has to do with being in it for the right reasons, understanding, you know, what you are as a representative, not doing it for hubris, not doing this for ego. you are a public servant, and I have been a public servant my whole life. I come from a family of public servants. It was actually a bit of a struggle for me to make the jump to be the person front and center to do these type of things. I've always been a behind the scenes worker, and I will take that same approach, even if I am the member, that I am a put your head down and get the work done type of person. Now, obviously, you have to use your role in different ways if you're the face of the office, and it's something that I've learned to do more, and it's something that I plan to do more of. But at its core, it's always going to be a public service job. Anyone that comes in here and tells you they have all the answers, anyone that comes in here that tells you if you elect me, your whole life is going to change, they're not, please run from that person, is the best thing I could say. I don't think of the job in those ways. I think of the job as listening to the people in the community. Always, hear from the experts, hear from the people who are living it, and then take your voice, your power in your role to deliver that for them. Don't think that you're going to come up with everything on day one, because the first thing that you're going to lose is your ego. So I just want to thank everybody for allowing me the time to talk, and I hope I can earn your vote.
Thank you so much, Vincent Argenziano, for participating in our candidates forum. We value our vote and appreciate the opportunity you have provided in demonstrating that you value our votes as well. We wish you the best of luck on your races for New York State Senate and New York State Assembly. I am now turning the mic over to our National Council of Negro Women's member, Nija Howard, to close out tonight's session. Nija, take it away.
Thank you, President Nicole Myers. Hello, my name is Nija Howard from the National Council of Negro Women, Staten Island section. On behalf of the Coalition of Staten Island Black-led community-based organizations Candidates Forum Week, we thank our candidates for their participation tonight and for their willingness to run for this important office. Good luck. We thank our coalition partners and their respective members for listening in tonight and taking the time to ensure you are informed, civically engaged voter. We also want to thank the tech team for their patience and expertise on hosting every day of the Candidates Forum Week. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., tune into Facebook Live on any of our social media platforms and listen to the candidates running for the Attorney General, State Comptroller, and judicial candidates for civil and Supreme Courts. In closing, we want to remind you to vote because your vote matters. And if you don't vote, you don't count. Until next time, good night.